The snow fell like bullets, and Martin Graves knew his war wasn't over. 7 days. That's all he had before the bank ripped away the only home his daughter had ever known. The North Star Diner sat dying in the Rockies, its neon sign flickering like a final heartbeat. Then, 15 Harley-Davidsons roared through the blizzard, and the door exploded open. Leather. Ice. Desperation. One biker locked eyes with Martin and whispered 2 words that changed everything. "It's you." What happened next would shake a small mountain town to its core. Stay with me until the end, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The wind didn't howl that night. It screamed. Martin Graves stood behind the counter of the North Star Diner, watching the blizzard tear apart the world outside. The windows rattled in their frames. The neon sign red letters spelling out North Star. Half of them already dead, flickered like a dying star. He'd been wiping the same spot on the counter for 10 minutes, his hands moving in circles that matched the chaos in his head. 7 days. That's what the letter said. 7 days to come up with $38,000, or the bank would take everything. The diner, the apartment above it. The only home his 9-year-old daughter had ever known. "Daddy, you're gonna rub a hole in that counter." Martin looked up. Ellie sat in the corner booth, her favorite spot, surrounded by an explosion of crayons and paper. Her dark hair fell across her face as she drew bottom lip caught between her teeth in concentration. She looked so much like her mother, it hurt. Sarah had been gone 3 years now. Cancer didn't care that she had a daughter who needed her, didn't care that she was only 32. "Just keeping it clean, kiddo," Martin said, forcing a smile. "It's already clean. You cleaned it 3 times. Ellie didn't look up from her drawing. "I'm keeping count." Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. Outside, the storm intensified. This was a bad one, the kind that shut down highways and left travelers stranded for days. The radio had been screaming warnings all afternoon. Interstate 70 was closed. The mountain passes were death traps. Any sane person was already hunkered down somewhere safe. Martin checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. He should close up, take Ellie upstairs, try to sleep, even though he knew he wouldn't. But something kept him down here, kept the lights on, kept the coffee brewing. The diner was empty except for them. Had been for 2 hours. Hell, it had been mostly empty for 2 months. Ever since the new highway bypass opened, traffic had dried up like a creek in August. The North Star used to be a landmark, the place where truckers stopped, where travelers grabbed breakfast, where locals gathered for pie and gossip. Now it was just a lonely building in the middle of nowhere, slowly bleeding out. "Can I show you?" Ellie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Show me what, sweetheart?" She held up her drawing. It was the diner, but not as it was as she imagined it. The North Star, glowing bright in the middle of a stormlight, pouring from every window, warm and golden against the dark. She'd drawn people inside, just stick figures, but you could feel the warmth, the life. "It's beautiful, Elle." "It's how I see it," she said quietly. "Even when it's dark outside, we keep the light on. Right, Daddy?" The lump in Martin's throat felt like a rock. "Right." That's when they heard it. At first, Martin thought it was thunder. But thunder didn't sound like that, didn't have that mechanical growl, that rhythmic pulse. He moved to the window, wiping away the condensation. Headlights, multiple headlights cutting through the white darkness. And then he saw them. Motorcycles. 15 of them moving in a tight formation through the blizzard, their engines roaring defiance at the storm. Harleys from the sound of it. They pulled into the parking lot, and for a moment, Martin just stared. Who the hell rides motorcycles in a blizzard? "Daddy, what is it?" "Stay in the booth, Ellie." "But..." "Stay." The door crashed open and winter came inside. Snow and wind and cold that bit like teeth. The first biker through was massive 6'4" easy leather vest over layers of gear beard crusted with ice. Behind him came the others. 15 in total. Men and women. All of them looked half-frozen faces, red and raw eyes squinted against the cold they'd just left behind. Martin's hand moved instinctively to his hip where he used to carry a sidearm. But that was another life. Afghanistan. A different kind of storm. The big biker pulled off his gloves with his teeth. His hands were shaking. They were all shaking. "We need shelter," he said. His voice was rough like gravel in a blender. "Storm came up fast, caught us between towns." Martin looked at them. 15 bikers, strangers, the kind of people who made other people nervous. But he saw something else too, saw the way a woman in the back was holding her arm close to her body, probably hurt. Saw a younger guy whose lips were turning blue. Saw desperation. "Coffee's hot," Martin said. "Take any seat you want." The tension broke like a rubber band snapping. They filed in snow, melting off them in puddles, and Martin moved fast. He turned up the heat, started pulling mugs from the rack, grabbed every clean towel he had. "Ellie," he called. "Need your help, kiddo?" She appeared at his elbow, eyes wide. "Are they okay?" "They will be. Can you bring them towels, dry ones?" Most kids would be scared, but Ellie had grown up in a diner around strangers, around Martin's vet buddies, who came through with their own scars. She grabbed a stack of towels and started moving from table to table, barefoot and fearless, handing them out with a smile. "Thank you, sweetheart," the woman with the hurt arm said. She had kind eyes, crow's feet that came from smiling. Her name patch said, Raven. Martin poured coffee. Black hot, strong enough to wake the dead. He moved down the line, filling mugs, and nobody spoke. They just wrapped their hands around the ceramic, letting the heat seep into their bones. The big biker watched him. Martin could feel it, those eyes tracking his every move. "You got food?" the man asked finally. "Kitchen's technically closed, but I can make something. Eggs, bacon, hash browns. Whatever you got, we can pay." Martin nodded and headed to the kitchen. As he cracked eggs onto the griddle, he could hear them starting to talk, voices low and rough. He caught fragments. "Thought we were gonna die out there. Ice under the snow bike almost went down. Lucky we saw the lights." He cooked. It was mechanical automatic. Crack eggs, flip bacon, shred potatoes. The smell of food filled the diner, and some of the tension eased. He loaded plates and brought them out, and the bikers ate like they hadn't seen food in days. Ellie had settled back in her booth, but she kept peeking over at them, curious. The young biker with the blue lips caught her eye and made a funny face. She giggled. It was almost 11 p.m. when the big biker stood up and walked to the counter. Up close, Martin could see the patches on his vest. A motorcycle club insignia. Names of brothers lost. A purple heart. "You serve?" the man asked, nodding at the small American flag behind the register. "Marines, 2 tours. Army, 1 tour. More than enough." He stuck out a hand. "Name's Cole." Martin shook it. "Martin Graves." Cole's hand froze. His eyes went wide just for a second, and something passed across his face that Martin couldn't read. Recognition shock. "Graves," Cole repeated slowly. "Martin Graves." "That's right." Cole looked back at the other bikers, made eye contact with Raven, then with a grizzled older rider near the window. Something unspoken passed between them. "You don't remember me, do you?" Cole asked. Martin studied him. "Should I?" "Kandahar, 2009. You were with 2nd Battalion." A cold feeling spread through Martin's chest. "Yeah." "There was an IED. Hit a convoy. 3 vehicles. You and your squad were first responders." Martin's hands gripped the counter. He did remember. God, he remembered. The smoke, the screaming, the smell of burning metal and flesh. They'd pulled 4 soldiers out of the wreckage. One of them died in his arms. "You pulled me out," Cole said quietly. "I was in the 2nd vehicle, trapped. You came back for me, even though the whole thing could have gone up. You carried me 50 meters to the medic. Martin's throat was tight. I was just doing my job. You saved my life. The diner had gone quiet. Every biker was looking now. Raven stood up slowly. She walked to the counter, and when she spoke, her voice shook. Highway 285, 3 years ago. Car accident. Drunk driver crossed the center line, hit me head on. I was trapped in my car, bleeding out. You stopped. You stayed with me until the ambulance came. You held my hand and told me I was going to make it. Martin's heart was pounding. He did remember. Remembered the twisted metal, the woman's scared eyes, the way she'd gripped his hand like a lifeline. The doctor said another 5 minutes, and I would have bled out. Raven continued. You saved my life too. The young biker with the blue lips stood up. Denver, 2 years ago. I was homeless, sitting outside a convenience store. You bought me food, gave me $100, told me there was a shelter that could help. That was the night I got clean. His voice cracked. You changed my life. One by one they stood. One by one they told their stories. An older woman who Martin had helped when her bike broke down. A man whose son Martin had mentored when the kid was heading down a bad path. A veteran Martin had sat with in a VA parking lot, talking him down from the edge. Each one a moment Martin had forgotten. Small kindnesses, quick actions, things he'd done without thinking, because that's just who he was. You're the silent one, Cole said. The other bikers nodded. That's what we call you. The ghost who helps and disappears. Never wants thanks. Never wants recognition. Martin couldn't speak. Ellie had come to stand beside him, her small hand finding his. We've been looking for you, Raven said. For months, trying to figure out who you were. And tonight, of all nights, the storm brings us right to your door. The door opened again. A woman walked in, sharp suit, designer heels clicking on the linoleum floor. She shook snow from her coat and pulled off expensive gloves. Martin's stomach dropped. Darla Voss, the bank officer. Mr. Graves, she said, all business. I know it's late, but I was driving back from Denver and saw your lights. Thought I'd stop in. It's not a good time, Martin said. It never is. She pulled papers from her briefcase. I wanted to give you these personally. Notice of foreclosure. You have 7 days to settle your debt or vacate the premises. The diner went dead silent. Ellie's hand tightened in Martin's. I told you on the phone I'm working on it, Martin said quietly. $38,000, Mr. Graves. That's a lot to work on. Darla's voice wasn't cruel, just tired. Professional. The bank has been more than patient. We've given you 3 extensions. But there are rules. I'm sorry, but this is business. This is his home. Ellie said, her voice small but fierce. You can't take our home. Darla's expression softened just for a moment. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I really am. Cole stepped forward. How much does he owe? That's private. 38,000. I heard you. How much to save this place? Darla looked at the bikers, then back at Martin. And you are? Someone who owes this man a debt. Cole looked at Martin. All of us do. That's very noble, Darla said. But the bank doesn't accept noble intentions. We need cash, certified funds, by next Tuesday. She laid the papers on the counter, gave Martin a look that might have been pity, and walked back out into the storm. The silence that followed was crushing. Daddy? Ellie's voice was so small. Martin picked her up, held her close. It's okay, baby. We'll figure it out. But he didn't know how. He'd been scrambling for months, taking odd jobs, selling everything that wasn't nailed down. The diner barely made enough to keep the lights on. There was no way to get $38,000 in 7 days. Cole was staring at him. They all were. Why didn't you tell anyone you were in trouble? Raven asked. Not your problem. The hell it isn't, Cole said. You saved our lives, all of us. You think we're going to stand by and watch you lose everything? I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's family. Cole looked at the other bikers. We make some calls, tonight, Every chapter we know, every writer who's ever been helped by this man, we spread the word. Cole, you don't have to. We're not asking permission. Cole's voice was steel wrapped in leather. The Silent One took care of us. Now we take care of him. Martin wanted to argue, wanted to tell them to go, that he'd handle it himself, that he didn't need help. But Ellie was in his arms, and her whole body was shaking. And for the first time in 3 years since Sarah died, since he became the only thing standing between his daughter and the world, Martin felt something crack open in his chest. Hope. Terrifying and fragile as a bird with broken wings. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Don't say anything, Raven said gently. Just let us do this. Let us give back what you gave us. The storm howled outside. Inside the North Star Diner, 15 bikers and one scared single dad and his daughter stood in the warm light, connected by invisible threads of kindness and debt, and something deeper than either. Cole pulled out his phone. I'm making calls. Everyone get your phones out. We've got 7 days to move mountains. As they started dialing, talking in low, urgent voices, Ellie looked up at her dad. Are they gonna help us? Martin kissed her forehead. Yeah, kiddo. I think they are. Because you helped them first. I guess so. That's what you always told me. Be the light in the dark. Right? Right. Ellie smiled and hugged him tighter. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside, something else was building. Something that would shake the mountains themselves. Martin didn't know it yet, but in 7 days the storm would return. Not with snow, but with thunder. The thunder of 102 engines, all of them coming home. The phone started ringing before midnight. Martin stood at the window watching the snow fall in thick curtains, while behind him, the diner had transformed into a war room. 15 bikers hunched over tables, voices low and urgent, phones pressed to their ears. Cole paced near the kitchen, his boot heels clicking a steady rhythm on the worn linoleum. Yeah, it's him. The Silent One. I'm looking at him right now, Cole said into his phone. A pause. Colorado. North Star Diner, off Old Highway 70. Another pause, longer this time. I don't care if you're in Texas. I don't care if there's a storm. You owe him. We all do. Ellie had fallen asleep in her booth, curled up with her head on her backpack. Martin had covered her with his jacket, tucked it around her shoulders. She looked so small, so peaceful. She had no idea the weight pressing down on them, the ticking clock that threatened to take away the only stability she'd known since her mother died. Raven appeared at Martin's elbow. She'd been quiet for the last hour, just watching, listening. Up close he could see the scars on her left arm, the ones that disappeared under her sleeve. From the accident. The one he'd stopped for. You remember that night? She asked softly. On 285. Martin nodded. You were driving a blue Honda. Your bike was in the shop. You remember what you said to me while we waited for the ambulance? He didn't. It had been 3 years, and he'd said a lot of things to a lot of people. You told me that fear was just another passenger. That I could choose to listen to it or tell it to shut up and hold on. Raven smiled, but her eyes were wet. I was so scared. The drunk driver, he didn't make it. His car was worse than mine. And I kept thinking, what if that was me? What if I was the one who didn't make it? But you just kept talking, kept me present, kept me breathing. I'm glad you're okay, Martin said. I'm more than okay. I got clean after that. The painkillers from the accident, they almost took me down a bad road. But I kept hearing your voice telling me to hold on. She touched his arm. We're gonna save this place, Martin. Every single one of us in here owes you our life. You think we're gonna let a bank take yours? Before Martin could respond, Cole's voice boomed across the diner. Listen up. Everyone stopped talking. I just got off with the Iron Kings in Wyoming. They're spreading the word. So are the Desert Riders in Arizona. Thunder Road in Montana. The Broken Chains out of Nevada. He looked at Martin. Words traveling. By morning, every chapter in the western states is going to know what's happening here. A younger biker named Tommy spoke up. My cousin runs a YouTube channel, motorcycle culture stuff. He's got like 200,000 subscribers. I'm texting him now. Social media, Raven said. We need to get this story out there, not for pity, for truth. People need to know what kind of man Martin Graves is. No, Martin said sharply. Everyone looked at him. I don't want this turned into some charity case. I don't want my story plastered all over the internet. It's not about charity, Cole said. It's about community, about what we do for each other. I can't ask people to give me money. You're not asking. We're telling. Cole's voice was firm, but not unkind. You spent your whole life helping people and disappearing, never taking credit, never wanting thanks. Well, guess what? This time you don't get a choice. This time we're helping you whether you like it or not. Martin's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse to handle this himself, to not be a burden. Sarah used to say it was his biggest flaw, his inability to accept help. She'd been right. What about your daughter? Raven asked quietly, glancing at Ellie sleeping in the booth. What does she need? That hit like a punch to the gut. Martin looked at Ellie, at her small form, wrapped in his jacket, at the crayons scattered around her, at the drawing of the diner glowing bright in the storm. His little girl, who'd already lost her mother, who'd already been through too much. She needs a home, Martin whispered. Then let us help you give her one. The fight went out of him. He nodded just once, and the bikers went back to their phones with renewed energy. The storm outside intensified, but the diner stayed warm. Martin made more coffee, and the bikers worked through the night. By 2 in the morning, the calls had spread to 15 states. By 3, there was a Facebook page. By 4, Tommy's cousin had posted a video explaining the situation, and the comments were already pouring in. Martin tried not to look. Tried not to see the strangers offering help, sharing their own stories of the nameless veteran who'd helped them once. A woman in Kansas City who remembered a soldier giving her cab fare when she was stranded. A kid in Denver who said a man matching Martin's description had talked him out of joining a gang. A truck driver who swore Martin had helped him change a tire in a thunderstorm and refused payment. How many people did you help? Tommy asked, scrolling through comments. I don't know, I never kept count. Well, they remember, every single one of them. Dawn came gray and cold. The storm had passed, leaving 3 feet of fresh snow. The highway crews were out, but the roads were still closed. The bikers were stuck, but none of them seemed to mind. They'd claimed tables and booths, some sleeping, some still on their phones, some just drinking coffee and swapping stories. Martin was in the kitchen making breakfast when he heard the door open. He looked up to see Sheriff Ray Tucker stomping snow off his boots. Ray was 65, built like a bear, and had known Martin since he'd moved to the area 5 years ago. Heard you had some overnight guests, Ray said, eyeing the bikers. Storm came up fast. They needed shelter. Ray grunted. Heard something else too. Heard you're in trouble with the bank. Word traveled fast in small towns. Martin cracked eggs onto the griddle. Nothing I can't handle. That's what Sarah used to say, right up until she couldn't. Ray's voice was gentle. You're not alone in this, son. This town owes you. I haven't done anything for this town. The hell you haven't. You fixed old Mrs. Patterson's porch when she couldn't afford it. You gave Danny Morrison a job when no one else would hire him after his DUI. You drove to the hospital in the middle of the night when Pete Henshaw had his heart attack because the ambulance was 30 minutes out. Ray leaned against the counter. You think we don't notice? You think we don't see? Martin didn't know what to say. He'd just done what needed doing. That's all. There's a town meeting tonight, Ray said. At the church, 6 o'clock. You should come. I don't think... I'm not asking Martin. I'm telling. People want to help. Let them. After Ray left, Martin found Ellie awake in her booth, watching the bikers with curious eyes. Cole was showing her pictures on his phone, motorcycles, rallies, open roads. Daddy Cole says, when I'm bigger, I can ride on his bike. Can I? We'll see, kiddo. That means no. Ellie rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. She liked Cole. Liked all of them. Tommy came over with his phone. Okay, this is crazy. The video has like 50,000 views already, and there's a GoFundMe page someone started. It's at $6,000. Martin's stomach twisted. Tell them to take it down. Too late. It's everywhere. People are sharing it. Local news wants to do a story. No, absolutely not. Martin, Raven said, walking over. This is happening whether you want it or not. People want to help. Let them. The day passed in a blur. More calls, more shares, more strangers commenting, sharing, pledging. The GoFundMe climbed to 10,000, then 15. Local businesses started calling, offering donations. The hardware store, the grocery, even the gas station. By evening, the roads had been cleared enough for the bikers to leave if they wanted. But they didn't. Instead, they rode in formation to the church engines rumbling through the quiet mountain town. Martin followed in his truck, with Ellie beside him, her hand in his. The church parking lot was full. Cars lined the street. Martin's chest tightened. Are all these people here for us? Ellie whispered. I guess so. Inside, the church was packed. 200 people, maybe more. Folks Martin recognized, neighbors, customers, people he'd helped without thinking twice. And in the back, the 15 bikers stood like sentinels, arms crossed, watching. Pastor Williams stood at the front. He was a kind man, 70 years old, with white hair and eyes that saw too much. Thank you all for coming, he said. We're here tonight for one of our own, Martin Graves, a man who's given everything to this community and asked for nothing in return. He looked directly at Martin. Come up here, son. Martin shook his head. But Ellie squeezed his hand, and somehow that gave him the courage to stand to walk down the aisle while everyone watched. Pastor Williams put a hand on his shoulder. Martin doesn't like attention. He doesn't want recognition. But tonight isn't about what he wants. It's about what's right. He turned to the crowd. Who has Martin helped? A hand went up. Mrs. Patterson, 92 years old, stood with her walker. He fixed my porch, wouldn't take a dime. Another hand. Danny Morrison. Gave me a job when I was fresh out of rehab. Believed in me when no one else did. More hands. More stories. A woman whose car he'd helped push out of snow. A kid whose bike he'd repaired. A family whose groceries he'd paid for when their card was declined. Each story was small. A kindness. A moment. Nothing that seemed worth remembering. But together they painted a picture of a man who'd quietly held a community together with acts of grace. Darla Voss stood near the back. Martin saw her, and their eyes met. She looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere else. The bank wants to take his diner, Pastor Williams said. The place that's been a beacon in this town for 15 years. The place where travelers find warmth and locals find home. We can't let that happen. A man Martin didn't recognize stood up. He wore a suit, looked official. I'm James Chen. I run a non-profit that helps veterans. I'd like to contribute $5,000 to save the North Star. The crowd erupted in applause. More people stood, pledging money, offering help, promising support. The amounts varied. Some gave $20, some gave hundreds. But each gift came with a story, with gratitude, with love. Martin felt tears on his face and didn't care. Ellie was beside him now, her small hand in his, and she was crying too. Cole walked to the front. His heavy boots echoed in the sudden silence. I've known Martin for exactly 24 hours, he said. But 15 years ago, he saved my life in Afghanistan. Didn't know me. Didn't owe me anything. Just did it because that's who he is. He pulled out his wallet, pulled out a check. This is $10,000 from my club, and by tomorrow there'll be more, because riders across the country are rallying. We're calling it the Silent One Rally. Every chapter is contributing. Raven stood. The Women Riders of the West are in. $5,000, and we're organizing a ride. Everyone's invited. This Saturday, we'll ride to the diner, Show Martin what community looks like." "That's in 6 days," someone called out. "The foreclosure is in 7. "Then we better move fast," Raven said. Darla Voss pushed through the crowd. She looked angry, or maybe scared. Martin couldn't tell. "This is all very touching," she said, her voice tight. "But the bank has rules, legal obligations. I can't just—" "Can't what?" Ray Tucker stood. "Can't have a heart. Can't see that this man deserves better. It's not about deserving. It's about contracts, about debt. My son thought he deserved better too." The room went silent. Darla's face went white. "Your son," someone whispered. "Daniel Voss," Ray said quietly. "Served in Afghanistan, killed by an IED in 2009. He looked at Darla. "Isn't that right?" Darla's hands were shaking. "Don't, please." But Cole was staring at her now, something dawning in his eyes. "Daniel Voss. I knew him. We served together. He was—" Cole's voice broke. "He was in the convoy, the one that got hit." Darla's knees buckled. Someone helped her to a pew. She sat down hard, her professional mask cracking. "He wrote me letters," she whispered. "Every week. In his last letter he told me about a place. A diner he'd stopped at before deployment. Said the owner, a veteran, made him feel like he mattered. Like he was worth something." She looked up at Martin. "He never told me your name. Just said, 'the man at the diner.'" Martin's heart stopped. He remembered. A young soldier nervous, talking too fast about going overseas. Martin had sat with him for 2 hours, just listening, sharing his own stories, telling the kid he'd be okay. "He died 3 days later," Darla said. "And I've spent 15 years trying to make sense of it. Trying to be strong, professional, following the rules because rules are all I had left." She pulled something from her purse. An envelope worn and creased. "This is his last letter. I've read it 1,000 times." She opened it with shaking hands and read aloud. "Mom, I'm scared. I won't lie. But today I met someone who reminded me why I'm doing this. A veteran at a diner in Colorado. We talked for hours. He told me fear is just another passenger, that I can choose to listen to it or tell it to shut up and hold on. He made me feel brave. I'm going to hold on to that. I love you." The silence was absolute. Ellie was crying. Martin was crying. Half the church was crying. Darla walked to Martin. "You were the last person to give my son hope before he died, and I've been trying to take you home." Her voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry." "You didn't know," Martin managed. I should have looked beyond the numbers." She pulled out the foreclosure papers from her bag, and right there in front of 200 witnesses, she tore them in half. "The debt is forgiven. The bank can fire me if they want. I don't care. This ends now." The church exploded. People cheering, crying, hugging. Cole grabbed Martin in a bear hug that lifted him off his feet. Raven kissed his cheek. Ellie wrapped her arms around his waist and wouldn't let go. But Martin was watching Darla, who stood alone, tears streaming down her face. He walked over and, without a word, pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything, including your son." She sobbed against his shoulder. "He was so proud to serve, so brave." He was. I could see it. When they finally pulled apart, Pastor Williams was at the pulpit grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Well," he said, "I guess we don't need to raise money for the debt anymore. But I propose we keep going. Let's renovate that diner. Let's make it better than ever. Let's make it a place of healing, a place where veterans, travelers, and anyone who needs light can find it." The crowd roared approval. Tommy held up his phone. "The GoFundMe is at 30,000. The video has 500,000 views. And people are still pledging." "Then let's use it," Raven said. "Let's build something beautiful." That night, back at the diner, Martin couldn't sleep. He stood at the window watching the stars come out above the snow-covered mountains. Ellie was asleep upstairs, safe, secure home. Cole found him there. "Can't shut your brain off." "Something like that." "You know what tomorrow is?" "Wednesday. 5 days until the big ride. Word is spreading. We might have more than 100 bikes show up." Martin shook his head in disbelief. "All this? For me?" "Not for you. Because of you. There's a difference." Cole clapped him on the shoulder. "Get some rest. The real work starts tomorrow." "What real work?" Cole grinned. "You think we're just gonna raise money and leave? Nah. We're gonna rebuild this place. Together. Every rider who shows up is bringing tools. We're gonna make the North Star shine like never before." As Cole walked away, Martin stood in the empty diner feeling the weight of the past days settle into something new. Something like peace. Outside, the mountains stood silent under the stars, and somewhere out there, engines were already rumbling. Coming home. The first truck arrived at dawn. Martin was already awake, sitting at the counter with his third cup of coffee, when he heard the diesel engine rumbling up the access road. Through the window, he watched a flatbed Ford pull into the parking lot, its bed loaded with lumber tools and paint cans. The driver who stepped out was a man in his 60s wearing work boots and a flannel shirt. "You Martin Graves?" the man called through the door. Martin opened it. Cold air rushed in. "That's me. Name's Bill Hutchins. I'm with the Carpenters Union Local 55 out of Denver. Heard you could use some help." He gestured to the truck. "Got 6 more guys coming. We took the day off. Hope that's all right." Before Martin could respond, 2 motorcycles roared into the lot. Then 4 more. Then a van. By 7 in the morning, the parking lot looked like a rally. 30 people, maybe 40. Bikers, contractors, locals, strangers. All of them carrying tools, supplies, purpose. Cole emerged from the diner where he'd spent the night sleeping in a booth. His hair was wild, his eyes still heavy with sleep, but he was grinning. "Told you. The real work starts today." Ellie came downstairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. She stopped on the bottom step, staring at the crowd gathering outside. "Daddy, why are all these people here?" "They came to help, sweetheart." "Help do what?" Martin looked around the diner. At the cracked linoleum. The flickering lights. The booth seats held together with duct tape. The kitchen equipment that barely worked. This place had been dying for years, held together by his stubbornness and prayer. "Help us make this place new again," he said. Raven was the first through the door, carrying a toolbox in one hand and a bag of donuts in the other. "Morning sunshine," she said to Ellie. "You ready to work?" "I'm only 9. "Perfect age. I need someone to be my assistant." Raven winked. "You in?" Ellie looked at Martin, who nodded. Her whole face lit up. "Okay." By 8 o'clock, the diner had been emptied. Tables and booths stacked outside under tarps. Equipment wheeled into the parking lot. The walls stripped bare. What had taken Martin 15 years to build came down in 2 hours, and standing in the empty shell, he felt something close to grief. "Hey." Tommy appeared at his elbow, young and eager. "You good?" "Yeah, just strange seeing it like this." "It's gonna be better, you'll see." Tommy held up his phone. Also, the video hit 2 million views. News trucks are asking to come film. What should I tell them? Martin's jaw tightened. Tell them no. Martin, I said no. This isn't about publicity. This isn't some feel-good story for the evening news. Tommy nodded slowly. Okay, but people want to know. They want to see what their donations are doing. Then they can see when it's done. Cole walked over, blueprints in hand. He'd found an architect in the group, a woman named Sarah Chen, who'd ridden up from Boulder. Together, they'd sketched out a plan in the early morning light. All right, listen up, Cole's voice boomed. The crowd quieted. We've got 5 days before the rally. That's not a lot of time, but we're not rebuilding the whole structure. We're renovating, making it better, stronger. He unrolled the blueprint on a makeshift table. New flooring throughout, fresh paint inside and out, updated kitchen equipment, new booths and tables. We're adding a wing on the east side, a community space. For meetings, gatherings, whatever people need. 5 days, someone said. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible when you've got this many hands, Raven said. We work in shifts, round the clock if we have to. Bill Hutchins stepped forward. My guys know what they're doing. We'll handle the structural stuff, flooring, framing, electrical. A woman in coveralls raised her hand. I'm a plumber. I'll tackle the kitchen and bathrooms. I paint, another voice called. I do electrical work. One by one, people volunteered, assigned themselves tasks, formed teams. The chaos organized itself like a living thing, each person finding their place. Martin stood back and watched. All his life he'd been the one helping, the one fixing, the one showing up. Now people were showing up for him, and he didn't know how to hold it. Didn't know where to put all this gratitude that felt too big for his chest. Darla Voss arrived mid-morning, looking uncertain. She'd traded her suit for jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger somehow, more human. I don't know how to build anything, she said to Martin. But I can organize, make lists, keep track of supplies. You don't have to be here. Yes, I do. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. I need to be here. Raven put her to work managing the donation money, coordinating supply runs, fielding calls from people wanting to help. Darla threw herself into it with the same intensity she'd probably used to foreclose on homes. But this time the intensity was building something instead of tearing it down. The work began in earnest. Saws screaming, hammers pounding, the smell of fresh lumber and paint. Ellie appointed herself the official water girl, running around with bottles for anyone who looked thirsty. She wore a tool belt that Raven had given her 3 sizes too big, and she took her job seriously. Martin worked alongside everyone else, pulling up old flooring, hauling debris. His back ached and his hands blistered, but it felt good. Felt right. Like he was finally doing something instead of just waiting for the end. At lunch, someone set up a grill. Burgers and hot dogs appeared. People ate standing up, sitting on the ground, too busy to stop for long. The conversation flowed easy stories about bikes, about the road, about the places they'd been and the people they'd met. You know what I love about riding? A biker named Jules said. He was older, maybe 70, with a white beard and kind eyes. It's honest. Just you and the machine and the road. No pretending. No hiding. That's what Martin does, Cole said. Life's honest. No pretense. I just do what needs doing, Martin said. Exactly. You don't overthink it. You see someone who needs help, you help. Simple as that. Cole took a bite of his burger. Most people complicate kindness, make it transactional. You just give. Martin didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. But Ellie was watching him with those 2 old eyes of hers, the ones that saw everything. Mom used to say Daddy couldn't walk past someone in trouble, she said quietly. Said it was his superpower and his kryptonite, all at once. The group went quiet. They all knew Sarah was gone, had pieced it together from comments and context. But hearing Ellie talk about her mother made it real. She sounds like she was smart, Raven said gently. She was the smartest. Ellie's voice wavered. She told me before she died that Daddy would take care of me, that he'd always keep the light on. She looked at the gutted diner, at the people working to save it. I think she'd like this. All of you helping him keep his promise. Martin had to turn away. Had to take a minute. He walked to the edge of the parking lot, staring at the mountains until he could breathe again. Cole followed, but didn't speak. Just stood there, a solid presence, until Martin was ready. I miss her every day, Martin said finally. I know. Some days I don't know how to do this without her. How to be enough for Ellie. You're doing it right now, You've been doing it for 3 years. Cole's voice was firm. And you're not alone anymore. You got us now. The afternoon brought more arrivals. A semi-truck from a restaurant supply company pulled up with new kitchen equipment donated, they said. A van load of women from a quilting circle showed up with curtains they'd sewn. A group of teenagers from the local high school came to help paint. By evening, the transformation was visible. New subflooring had been laid. Walls had been patched and primed. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel. The bones of the new wing were taking shape, framed and ready for walls. Tommy had set up a speaker system, and music filled the air. Classic rock mostly. Springsteen Tom, Petty Bob Seger. Songs about the American road, about struggle and hope and hanging on. You know what we need, Jules said. He was working on installing new light fixtures. A name for this thing, this gathering. Can't just call it the renovation. The Silent One rebuild, someone suggested. Martin shook his head. Not about me. The North Star Rising, Ellie said. Everyone looked at her. She was sitting on a stack of lumber, her crayon drawings spread around her. Because it's not just fixing the diner, it's making it shine brighter. North Star Rising, Raven repeated. I like it. It's perfect. The name stuck. By the time the sun set, #North Star Rising was trending on social media. Tommy's cousin's video had spawned dozens of others. People documenting the rebuild, sharing stories, spreading the word about the rally on Saturday. That night, 40 people camped in the parking lot. Some in RVs, some in tents, some just sleeping in their trucks. They built a bonfire and sat around it swapping stories. Martin listened to them talk about their lives, their roads, the things that had led them here. A woman named Patricia told about losing her husband to suicide. How she'd found Martin's story online, and it had given her hope. Just seeing people come together like this, it reminded me that good still exists. A young vet named Marcus talked about his struggles with PTSD, how he'd been planning to end it all until he saw the video. Something about it made me want to stick around, see how it turned out. Each story was a thread, and together they wove something bigger than any one person. A tapestry of hurt and healing of darkness, and the choice to find light. Ellie fell asleep against Martin's side, her head on his shoulder. He carried her upstairs to the apartment above the diner, the only part they hadn't touched. Tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead. Daddy, she murmured, half asleep. Yeah, baby. Are we gonna be okay? Yeah, we're gonna be okay. Promise. Promise. She smiled and drifted off, and Martin stood there watching her breathe. This child. This miracle. The only piece of Sarah he had left. He'd walk through fire for her. Hell, he'd already tried. When he came back downstairs, Darla was sitting alone at the edge of the firelight. She looked small, vulnerable. Nothing like the sharp bank officer who'd walked into his diner with foreclosure papers. Can I sit? Martin asked. She nodded. For a long time, they just watched the fire. I read his letters again tonight, Darla said finally. All of them. Daniel's letters. You don't have to. I want to. I need to talk about him. I've spent so long just surviving, just pushing forward, that I forgot how to remember. She pulled her knees to her chest. He was 22, so young. He joined up because he wanted to make a difference. Wanted to be brave like his grandfather, who fought in Vietnam. He was brave, Martin said. I could see it in him. What did you two talk about in the diner that day? Martin thought back. It had been just before Daniel's deployment in the early morning hours. The kid had been wired, nervous energy pouring off him in waves. He told me about you. How you'd raised him alone after his dad left. How you worked 2 jobs to put him through school. How scared he was that he'd let you down. Martin's voice was soft. I told him that courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. I told him his mom would be proud no matter what. Darla was crying silently. I was so angry at him for joining. We fought about it. Our last conversation before he deployed was a fight. And then he was gone, and I never got to tell him I understood, that I was proud. He knew. How can you be sure? Because he wrote you every week. Because he talked about you with love. That doesn't come from doubt. That comes from knowing he was loved back. She wiped her eyes. I've been so cold, so hard. I thought if I just followed the rules, kept everything professional, I could keep the pain away. But all I did was become someone Daniel wouldn't recognize. You're here now. That's what matters. I took away your home, or tried to. You gave it back. You made a choice, a brave one. Martin looked at her. Your son would be proud of that. The fire crackled. Around them, people were settling in for the night, voices growing quiet. Tomorrow would bring another day of work, another wave of arrivals, another step toward Saturday. Can I tell you something? Darla asked. Sure. I think Daniel sent me here. I think somehow he knew. That storm, this place, it's too much coincidence. He wanted me to find you, to find this. She gestured at the workers sleeping around the fire. To remember what matters. Martin didn't believe in signs. He'd seen too much random cruelty in the war to believe the universe gave a damn. But he believed in people, believed in the choices they made. And if Darla needed to believe her son had guided her here, who was he to argue? Maybe he did, Martin said. The next 3 days blurred together. More people arrived. The local news finally got their story, not from Martin, but from Sheriff Tucker, who gave an interview about the town coming together. The footage showed the diner transformation, the workers, the growing pile of supplies. By Thursday, the GoFundMe had hit $60,000. More than enough for the renovation, and then some. The new wing took shape. Windows went in. The roof was shingled. Inside the main diner was unrecognizable. New floors gleamed. Fresh paint covered every wall in warm earth tones. The booths were custom-built, stronger than the old ones with padded seats. The counter had been refinished. The old formica replaced with solid wood. Ellie's drawings went up on one wall, framed and mounted. Each one a memory of something good. The diner in the storm. People helping each other. Motorcycles lined up like soldiers. Raven had found something in the debris, an old wind chime, tarnished silver, half broken. She brought it to Martin. This was in the storage room. You remember it. Martin took it carefully. The memory hit hard. 3 years ago, Highway 285, Raven's accident. This had been hanging from her rearview mirror. He'd grabbed it from the wreckage, intending to give it back, but when she was rushed to the hospital, he'd kept it. Forgot about it. It was yours, he said. I thought I lost it in the crash. My daughter gave it to me before she died. Leukemia when she was 7. Raven's voice was thick. It was the last gift she gave me. I thought it was gone forever. I'm sorry. I should have. You kept it safe. For 3 years you kept a piece of my daughter safe. She took it from him, held it to the light. The chimes sang softly. Can we hang it here in the diner? Are you sure? This place is about second chances, about things that survive. She smiled through tears. Seems fitting. They hung it near the window where the breeze could catch it. Every time it chimed, it sounded like hope. Friday came, the day before the rally. The diner was nearly complete. Final touches being added. Painters finishing trim. Electricians installing the last light fixtures. The new sign had arrived, North Star Diner, with a subtitle underneath, a place for the lost, the tired, and the still fighting. That evening they had a soft opening. Just the workers, the volunteers, the people who'd given their time. Martin cooked. Real food made with care. Burgers and fries. Chicken fried steak pie that Raven had made following a recipe she'd found in the old kitchen. They filled every booth and table. The new space was warm, alive, exactly what it was supposed to be. Ellie sat with Cole and Raven, laughing at some story about a bike rally gone wrong. Darla was in a corner with Patricia the widow, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. Tommy stood up and clinked his glass. "I want to say something." The room quieted. "I came here because I owed Martin a debt. He helped me when I was homeless, when I was using, when I had nothing. But this week I realized something. We all came here thinking we were paying back a debt. But what we really did was find each other, find community, find purpose." He raised his glass. "To the North Star, may it guide the lost home." "To the North Star," everyone echoed. Martin couldn't speak, could only nod his thanks. Ellie climbed into his lap, wrapped her arms around his neck. "We did it, Daddy," she whispered. "We kept the light on." "Yeah, baby, we did." That night, as everyone settled in, Martin stood outside watching the stars. Tomorrow, the rally would come. They were expecting maybe 50 bikes, maybe 100 if word had spread far enough. Whatever happened, they'd face it together. Cole joined him, 2 beers in hand. He passed one to Martin. "You ready for tomorrow?" Cole asked. "I don't know what to expect." "Neither do I. But something tells me it's gonna be big." Cole took a long drink. "You know what the ride's called now? The Silent One's Thunder. Riders are coming from 20 states. Maybe more. That's crazy. That's love, brother. That's what happens when you spend your whole life giving it away. Eventually it comes back 100-fold. Cole looked at the renovated diner lights glowing warm in the mountain darkness. "This place is gonna do good. Real good. You're gonna help a lot of people." We're gonna help people." "Damn right. We're in this together now." Cole grinned. "Whether you like it or not, you got yourself a family. A big, loud motorcycle-riding family." Martin laughed. It felt good. Felt right. As they stood there, a sound started. Soft at first, then growing. An engine, then another, then 10-20 more. Headlights appeared in the distance, snaking up the mountain road. "What the hell?" Martin said. The bikes arrived in waves. Dozens of them. They filled the parking lot, spilled onto the access road, lined the highway. Riders dismounted, stretched, looked around at the renovated diner with something like reverence. A woman walked up to Martin. She was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and a leather jacket covered in patches. "You Martin Graves?" she asked. "Yeah." "Name's Beth. Rode up from New Mexico. Got here a day early." She looked around at the other arriving riders. "Looks like a lot of us did. Couldn't wait." By midnight, there were over 100 bikes, riders setting up tents, sharing food, telling stories. The parking lot had become a village, united by asphalt and chrome, and a shared debt to a man who'd never asked for anything. Martin walked through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting thanks, feeling overwhelmed and grateful and terrified all at once. These people had dropped everything, had ridden through the night, had come because of him. No, not because of him. Because of what he represented. The idea that kindness mattered, that helping strangers wasn't stupid or naive, that in a world of darkness, someone had to keep the light on. And tomorrow, that light would shine brighter than it ever had. Dawn broke cold and clear, the kind of mountain morning that made the world look scrubbed clean. Martin hadn't slept. He'd tried around 2 in the morning, but his mind wouldn't shut off. So he'd come back downstairs and started doing what he always did. When he couldn't think straight, he made coffee. The diner's new kitchen gleamed in the pre-dawn light. Everything worked perfectly now. State-of-the-art equipment, organized workspaces, enough capacity to feed an army. Which was good, because that's exactly what he was about to do. Through the window, he could see the parking lot transformed into a sea of motorcycles and tents. Campfires still burned here and there, people huddled around them against the morning chill. He counted bikes out of habit and lost track around 1:20. More kept arriving even now, headlights cutting through the gray dawn. Couldn't sleep either. Martin turned. Darla stood in the doorway, wrapped in a heavy coat, her hair messy from a restless night. She looked different without her armor of professional clothing and perfect makeup. More real. "Coffee," he offered. "Please." He poured 2 cups, and they stood at the counter together watching the sun paint the mountains gold. Outside, the camp was beginning to stir. Engines coughed to life for warmth. Voices called out morning greetings. "I keep thinking about what today means," Darla said quietly. "All these people coming together, for kindness. In a world that feels so angry all the time, this feels like—" She trailed off, searching for words. "A reminder," Martin finished, "that we're not as broken as we think." "Yeah." She sipped her coffee. "Daniel would have loved this. He believed in people. Even when I told him he was naive, that the world would disappoint him, he'd just smile and say, 'Someone has to believe first.'" The door opened and Cole walked in, followed by Raven, Jules, Tommy, and a dozen others. They looked rough, unshaven, tired, but their eyes were bright with anticipation. "Morning," Cole rumbled. "We got a head count. 143 bikes as of 6 a.m., and more coming. The highway's backed up for 2 miles with riders waiting to get here." Martin's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. 143. And counting. Tommy's cousin posted the location last night. It went viral. People are riding in from everywhere. Cole's grin was enormous. "Brother, I think you're gonna need more bacon." Raven laughed. "I'll make a supply run. Who's coming with me?" Half a dozen hands went up. They grabbed keys and headed out, and Martin stood there trying to process. 143 bikes, maybe more. All for him. All because he'd helped people and never thought twice about it. "Daddy!" Ellie thundered down the stairs, already dressed, her hair in a messy ponytail. She'd been up late with the other kids who'd come with their parents, running wild through the camp like it was the world's best adventure. "Morning, kiddo." "Did you see how many people are here? It's like a whole city of motorcycles." Her eyes were huge. "Can I go help set up the tables outside?" "After breakfast." "But Daddy." "After breakfast. That's the rule." She pouted, but climbed onto a stool at the counter. Cole slid a plate of pancakes in front of her, already dripping with syrup, and her pout evaporated into pure joy. By 7, the diner was packed. People shoulder to shoulder, eating breakfast, drinking coffee, sharing stories. Martin cooked alongside volunteers who jumped in to help. The griddle never stopped sizzling. Eggs, bacon, hash browns, pancakes. He fell into the rhythm of it, the familiar dance of feeding people, and for the first time in days, his mind went quiet. This was what the North Star was meant to be. Not just a business, a gathering place, a home. Sheriff Tucker arrived with his deputies not for crowd control, but to help direct parking. The overflow had spilled onto the highway shoulder and into the neighboring field. News vans had shown up too despite Martin's wishes, but Tommy was handling them, keeping them back, respecting the space. At 9 o'clock, Cole stood on a table and whistled loud enough to crack glass. The crowd quieted. "All right, listen up." His voice carried across the packed diner and out into the parking lot where speakers had been set up. "We got riders still coming in. We're estimating 200 bikes by noon, maybe more. This is bigger than any of us expected." He looked at Martin. "And it's all because of one man's choice to live with his heart open, to help without asking for anything back." The crowd erupted in cheers. Martin felt his face burn. "Today isn't just about saving a diner," Cole continued. "It's about remembering what community means. It's about showing that kindness isn't weakness, that helping strangers isn't stupid, it's everything." He raised his coffee cup. "So let's make this a day Martin Graves and his daughter never forget. Let's make this a day that reminds all of us why we ride, why we live, why we keep going even when it's hard." The cheers were deafening. Were people pounding tables, whistling, shouting. Martin had to step outside because his chest was too tight and his eyes were too wet. Ellie found him behind the diner leaning against the wall. "You okay, Daddy?" "Yeah, baby. Just a lot." She took his hand. "Mom would be happy. She always said you gave too much away, but I think she was wrong. I think you gave exactly the right amount. And now it's coming back." God, when had his 9-year-old become so wise? "Come on," Ellie said, tugging his hand. "They want to start the ceremony thing." The ceremony had been Raven's idea. Before the big ride, they'd gather everyone together. Let people share their stories about Martin, about kindness, about the moments that mattered. Create a record of why they were all here. They'd set up a small stage in the parking lot, just a wooden platform with a microphone. Chairs and blankets spread out across the cleared space. 200 people, maybe more, gathered in the morning sun. The mountain stood silent witness behind them. Pastor William stepped up to the microphone first. "I've been a pastor in this town for 40 years, he said. "I've seen people come and go. I've seen good times and hard times, but I've never seen anything like what happened this week. A community not just local, but national, global, even coming together to lift up one man. Not because he asked, not because he demanded, but because his quiet acts of grace changed lives." He gestured to the crowd. "If Martin Graves helped you, I want to hear it. Come up, tell your story. Let's make sure this day is remembered." The first person up was Beth, the woman from New Mexico, who'd arrived early. She gripped the microphone like it might escape. 10 years ago, my son was killed in a motorcycle accident, hit by a drunk driver on Highway 50 in Kansas. I was driving cross-country to identify the body. Stopped at a diner in Colorado. This diner." Her voice shook. "I was a mess. Couldn't eat, couldn't think. And the owner, this quiet man, he just sat with me. Didn't say much, just sat. Listened when I needed to talk. Let me cry when I couldn't. When I left, he wouldn't let me pay. Said kindness wasn't transactional." She looked directly at Martin. "You gave me the strength to keep going that day, to face what I had to face. I never forgot you. And when I saw the story online, I knew I had to come. Had to say thank you." She stepped down to thunderous applause. Martin couldn't speak. He remembered her now. Remembered the grief radiating off her like heat. Next up was a young man, maybe 25, with tattooed arms and a nervous energy. "I'm Jake. 3 years ago, I was homeless in Denver. Heroin had taken everything. My family, my job, my dignity. I was sitting outside a 7-Eleven begging for change when this guy stopped." He pointed at Martin. "Bought me a hot meal. Gave me $100. But more than that, he looked me in the eye and said, 'You're worth saving.' Nobody had said that to me in 2 years. I used that money to get into a shelter, got clean, got my life back. Now I'm a counselor helping other addicts. All because one man saw me as human." The stories kept coming. A mother whose car Martin had fixed on the side of the road. A veteran Martin had talked down from suicide in a VA parking lot. A teenage girl Martin had driven home when she was stranded at a party where everyone was drinking. Each story a thread in a tapestry none of them had known existed. After an hour, Cole stepped up. "We could do this all day and still not hear every story, but I want to say something." He looked at Martin. "The silent one. That's what we call you. But today we're not silent. Today we're loud. Today we roar." On cue, every rider in the parking lot started their engines. The sound was apocalyptic. A wall of thunder that shook the ground, rattled the windows, echoed off the mountains. It went on for a full minute, engines screaming, and when it finally stopped, the silence that followed felt holy. "That's our thank you," Cole said. "That's our promise. You saved us. Now we got your back. Forever." Martin tried to speak, but couldn't. Ellie was crying beside him. Darla too. Half the crowd was in tears. Tommy jogged up to Cole and whispered something. Cole's eyes went wide. "Folks, I just got word. There's a convoy coming up the highway. Military vehicles, Humvees. They're about 10 minutes out." Confusion rippled through the crowd. Military? Why? Martin's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Had to be. The military didn't just show up without reason. Sheriff Tucker was already on his radio trying to get information. People stood craning to see down the highway. The celebration energy shifted to something tense, uncertain. Then they appeared. 6 Humvees in formation. American flags snapping in the wind. They pulled into the parking lot with precision, and soldiers climbed out. Young men and women in uniform standing at attention. A colonel stepped forward, his uniform crisp, his bearing rigid. He walked straight to Martin. "Sir, are you Martin Graves?" "Yes." The colonel saluted. "Colonel Michael Patterson, 2nd Battalion, United States Marine Corps. I believe you served with us, 2008 to 2012. "I did." "Sir, I'm here on behalf of the battalion. We heard what was happening here, heard about the silent one, heard about the man who saved lives and never wanted recognition." The colonel's voice cracked slightly. "We brought something for you." The soldiers moved to the back of one Humvee and pulled out a flagpole. At the top flew an American flag, but beneath it was something else. A banner. Hand-sewn, clearly made with care. The colonel unfurled it. In bold letters it read, "The North Star Company, 2nd Battalion Honorary Designation." "Your old battalion voted unanimously," the colonel said. "We're designating the North Star Diner as Honorary Company K, a place of refuge for all service members, a reminder of what we fight for." He looked at the crowd. Home, community, each other. Martin's knees almost gave out. Cole steadied him. "We also brought something else." The colonel nodded, and soldiers carried out a wooden box. Inside were plaques, dozens of them, each one engraved with a name and a date. "These are the names of every soldier from 2nd Battalion who died since 2008. We want them remembered here, honored here, in a place built on the foundation of what they believed in: service, sacrifice, kindness." Darla made a sound like she'd been struck. She pushed through the crowd staring at the plaques, and then she found it. Daniel Voss, her son's name engraved in bronze. "May I?" she whispered. "Of course, ma'am." She took the plaque with shaking hands, held it to her chest, and sobbed. Raven wrapped her arms around her. Patricia joined them, 3 women who'd lost everything holding each other up. The colonel turned back to Martin. "Permission to raise the colors, sir." Martin could barely breathe. "Granted." They raised the flagpole in front of the diner. The American flag first, then the battalion banner beneath it. As they secured it, every soldier saluted. Every veteran in the crowd followed suit. Martin raised his hand to his forehead, his arm steady despite his shaking heart, and held the salute until the ceremony was complete. The colonel shook Martin's hand. "Semper Fi, brother." Semper Fi. As the soldiers mingled with the crowd, sharing stories, meeting the bikers, the energy shifted again. This wasn't just a rally anymore. It was a convergence. Military-civilian riders, locals, strangers who'd become family. All of them drawn here by invisible threads of grace. Jules, the old biker, climbed on stage with his guitar. "Anybody mind if I play something?" "Play," someone shouted. He started with a simple melody. A folk song about the road, about coming home, about finding light in dark places. Others joined in, harmonies building, voices rising. And soon, 200 people were singing together, the sound carrying across the valley like a promise. Ellie tugged Martin's sleeve. "Daddy, look!" She pointed to the highway. More bikes were coming, dozens of them, and behind them, cars, families, people who'd driven hours to be here. The parking lot couldn't hold them anymore. They spilled into the field, onto the shoulder, creating a sea of metal and humanity. Tommy was on his phone, eyes wide. The live stream just hit 1 million viewers. People are watching from around the world. "How?" Martin asked. "Someone's been filming. Not the news crews, one of the riders. Just raw footage. People arriving, stories being told, the flag ceremony. It's everywhere." Raven appeared with a laptop, turned it so Martin could see. The comments scrolling by were too fast to read, but he caught fragments. People from Japan, from Germany, from Brazil. All of them watching. All of them moved. "This is bigger than us," Raven said softly. "This is a movement." By noon, the official count was 206 motorcycles. But the total attendance was over 500 people. They couldn't all fit. They spread out across the mountainside, a temporary city built on hope. Martin stood at the window of his renovated diner, watching it all, and felt something break open inside him. For 3 years since Sarah died, he'd been holding on by his fingernails. Just surviving. Just trying to be enough for Ellie. He'd forgotten what it felt like to be held up by others. To be seen. To be loved. Cole found him there. "You ready for the ride?" "What ride?" "The victory lap, brother. Every bike here is gonna ride. A loop through the valley and back, with you at the front." "I don't have a bike." Cole grinned. "You do now." Outside, they'd wheeled out a Harley. Custom paint job, deep blue with silver stars. A gift from the combined chapters. And on the tank, painted in elegant script, the silent one. "We can't accept that," Martin said. "Too late. It's registered in your name. You're riding whether you want to or not." Ellie was bouncing on her toes. "Can I ride too?" "With me," Raven said. "If your dad says it's okay." Martin looked at his daughter, at her bright eyes and fearless smile. Sarah's daughter. His daughter. The reason he kept going. "All right," he said. "But you wear a helmet. A good one." They geared up. Martin on his new bike, Ellie behind Raven, Cole leading the formation. 206 bikes formed up in the parking lot, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Sheriff Tucker and his deputies cleared the highway, stopped traffic, gave them the road. And then they rode. 206 motorcycles moving as one. Through the valley, past the town, along the base of the mountains. The sound was glorious. A symphony of engines and wind and freedom. People came out of their houses to watch. Stood on porches waving. Kids ran alongside for as long as they could keep up. Martin felt tears streaming down his face inside his helmet, and didn't care. This was life. This was joy. This was everything Sarah had wanted, for him to be part of something bigger, to let people in, to accept love, instead of just giving it. They rode for an hour, looping back to the diner, where the crowd erupted in cheers. As they dismounted, Ellie ran to Martin and jumped into his arms. "That was the best thing ever," she shouted. "Can we do it again?" He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in forever. "Maybe. Someday." The afternoon dissolved into celebration. Food appeared from everywhere. Someone set up a barbecue. Music played. People danced. The diner opened its doors to anyone who wanted to come inside, and it stayed full all day. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Darla stood on the stage one more time. She held Daniel's plaque in her hands. "I want to say something," she said into the microphone. The crowd quieted. "A week ago, I was a different person. Hard. Cold. Following rules because I didn't know how to do anything else. And then a storm brought me to this place. To this man. And I found my son again. Not literally. But I found the reason he served. The reason he believed. The reason he died thinking the world was worth saving." She held up the plaque. "This is going on the wall inside. With all the others. And every day when I walk past it, I'm going to remember. Not just Daniel. But all of you. This moment. This proof that love is stronger than loss. That community is stronger than isolation. That kindness, quiet, stubborn, relentless kindness can change the world." The applause was long and loud. When it finally died down, Martin stood up. He didn't want to. Hated being the center of attention. But he owed them words. Owed them truth. He walked to the stage on shaking legs. Took the microphone from Darla. "I don't know what to say," he started. His voice cracked. "I'm not good with words. I'm better with actions. But you all came here. Gave your time, your money, your stories. You saved my home. Saved my daughter's home. And I need you to know." He paused, fighting for control. "I need you to know that every person I ever helped, I did it because someone once helped me. In Afghanistan, when I was bleeding out from shrapnel, a medic stopped. Could have kept moving to someone with better odds, but he stopped. Worked on me for 20 minutes. Saved my life. His name was Jackson Mills. He died 2 days later, saving someone else." The crowd was silent. "He taught me that we're all we got. That the only thing that matters is what we do for each other. So I did what I could. Never wanted recognition. Never wanted thanks. Just wanted to pass it forward. But you all..." His voice broke completely. "You all gave me more than I ever gave anyone. You gave me hope. You gave my daughter a future. You reminded me that I'm not alone. That we're not alone." He looked at Ellie standing with Raven and Cole. "Thank you. All of you. For everything." He stepped down and the crowd surged forward. Hugs, handshakes, tears, laughter. It went on until the stars came out, until the temperature dropped and people started drifting to their tents and vehicles. But inside the North Star Diner, the lights stayed on, warm and bright and welcoming, just like always, just like it would forevermore. The last motorcycle didn't leave until Tuesday. Martin stood in the parking lot watching the final riders roll out their engines, fading into the mountain distance like a slow exhale. For 3 days, the North Star had been the center of something bigger than itself. Now the silence felt strange, almost too heavy. Ellie was asleep upstairs, exhausted from days of running wild with new friends collecting stories like other kids collected baseball cards. The diner behind him gleamed in the afternoon sun, transformed but somehow still itself. Better bones, same heart. "Weird, isn't it?" Raven said, walking up beside him. She'd stayed longer than the others, kept finding reasons to delay her departure. Going from chaos back to quiet. "Yeah." "You okay with it?" Martin considered. Was he okay? The question felt too simple for what he was feeling. The debt was forgiven. The diner was saved. More than saved, reborn. But something else had shifted too. Something inside him that he couldn't quite name. "I think so," he said finally. "Just need to figure out what happens next." Raven smiled. "What happens next is you open those doors and you let people in. Not just for coffee, for healing. That's what this place is now, whether you planned it or not." She was right. Over the last 3 days, Martin had watched it happen. Veterans sitting in booths, sharing stories they'd never told anyone. Travelers finding rest they didn't know they needed. Locals discovering they weren't as alone as they thought. The North Star had become something sacred, and he didn't know if he was ready for that responsibility. "I'm scared I'll mess it up," he admitted. "You won't. You can't. Because this isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. And brother, showing up is the one thing you've always done right." Raven pulled him into a hug. "I'll be back next month, bringing some folks who need this place. That okay?" "Always." She rode out an hour later, and Martin went inside to clean. But the diner was already spotless. Darla was there wiping down tables that didn't need wiping, organizing menus that were already organized. She'd been doing this for 2 days now, this compulsive cleaning, like if she stopped moving, she'd have to face something she wasn't ready for. "You can go home," Martin said gently. "You've done enough." "I don't want to go home." Her voice was quiet. "Home is empty. Has been for 15 years. Here I feel close to Daniel, like he's watching, like he's proud." Martin pulled out a chair. "Sit." She did reluctantly. He sat across from her. "Tell me about him. Not about his death. About his life." And she did. For the next hour, Darla talked about her son. About the kid who collected rocks and wanted to be a geologist. About the teenager who taught himself guitar and played terrible songs at family dinners. About the young man who joined the military, not for glory, but because he genuinely believed in service. She cried and laughed, and Martin just listened the way he'd listened to Daniel all those years ago. "He was so good," Darla whispered. "Too good for this world." No, the world needed him, still needs him. That's why his name's on that wall. That's why people will see it and remember. Martin reached across the table. "And that's why you're here, carrying his light forward." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You already started. You chose mercy over rules. You chose heart over policy. That's how." Darla wiped her eyes. "The bank fired me. Got the email this morning." "I'm sorry. I'm not." She laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "I hated that job. Hated who I'd become doing it. Daniel would have hated it too." She looked around the diner. "I was thinking if you need help running this place, I'm available. I'm good with numbers, organization, and I owe you. You don't owe me anything. Then let me do this because I want to. Because I need to, please." Martin nodded. "Okay, but we do it right. Fair wage, regular hours. You're not a volunteer, you're part of this." The smile that broke across her face made her look 10 years younger. Over the next weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Darla managed the books, handled suppliers, created systems that actually worked. Martin cooked and served and listened. Ellie did her homework in the corner booth and helped bus tables when the lunch rush hit. And slowly, word spread. The North Star became a destination. Not for the food, though, that was good, but for the feeling. Veterans started showing up, drawn by the battalion designation and the memorial wall where Daniel's name hung alongside 43 others. They'd sit for hours drinking coffee, talking to people who understood. Some cried, some laughed. Some just sat in silence, and that was okay too. A young woman named Casey arrived one Thursday afternoon, backpack on her shoulders, eyes hollow with exhaustion. She was 19, maybe 20, and she looked like she'd been running from something for a very long time. "Can I get some coffee?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course. Sit anywhere." She chose the booth in the back corner, the one that faced the wall, so she wouldn't have to see people looking at her. Martin brought coffee and didn't push, just left her alone until she was ready. 2 hours later, she was still there. Ellie had noticed her because Ellie noticed everyone. She walked over with her sketchpad. "Do you want to see my drawings?" Casey looked startled, like she'd forgotten other people existed. Sure." Ellie showed her the pictures on the wall, the diner glowing in the storm, the motorcycles lined up, people helping each other. And as she explained each one, Casey's expression slowly changed. The hardness softened. The walls came down just a little. "These are beautiful," Casey said. "Thanks. They're about hope. My dad says we gotta draw the light even when it's dark." "That's a good philosophy?" "What's a philosophy?" Casey almost smiled. "It means a good way to think about life." When Ellie wandered back to her homework, Casey caught Martin's eye. "Your daughter." "Yeah." "She's special." "She is." "My dad used to say stuff like that, before he died." Casey's hands wrapped tighter around her mug. "I ran away from my foster home, been on the road for 3 weeks. I don't know where I'm going, just knew I couldn't stay there anymore." Martin didn't judge, didn't lecture, just asked, "You hungry?" She nodded, tears spilling over. He made her a burger and fries. While she ate, he made a phone call. By the time she finished, he had options for her. A youth shelter in Denver that specialized in foster situations. A social worker who actually gave a damn. A bus ticket and enough cash to get started. "You don't have to take any of this," Martin said. "But it's here if you want it." Casey looked at the information at the resources at this stranger who'd given her more help in 3 hours than she'd received in 3 years. Why are you doing this? Because someone did it for me once, and because you deserve better than sleeping in bus stations. She stayed the night sleeping in the apartment's guest room that they'd started keeping ready for situations exactly like this. In the morning, Darla drove her to Denver, got her settled at the shelter, made sure she had what she needed. When Darla came back, her eyes were red but clear. "She's going to be okay," Darla said. "Because of you. Because of us. Because of this place." Darla looked around the diner like she was seeing it for the first time. "We're really doing something here, aren't we?" "I think we are." Stories like Casey's became common. A veteran struggling with PTSD who stayed for a week just sitting and healing. A truck driver who'd lost his wife and needed somewhere to grieve. A young couple whose car broke down and ended up staying for 3 days, helping in the kitchen, finding community they didn't know existed. The diner became what Raven had predicted, a healing place. Not because Martin tried to make it that way, but because he just kept the door open and the coffee hot and his heart available. Cole came back in October with 15 riders. They'd made it a monthly tradition the first Saturday of every month. They'd ride up, help with maintenance, eat breakfast, and ride out. Regular as clockwork. A reminder that the community was still there, still holding steady. "How's business?" Cole asked over eggs and bacon. "Good. Breaking even, which is more than I could say before. Just breaking even. With all the attention this place got." Martin shrugged. "We don't charge much, and we've been feeding a lot of folks who can't pay. Figured that's kind of the point." Cole laughed and shook his head. "Still the silent one, still giving it all away." "Not all of it. We're doing okay." And they were. Better than okay. The GoFundMe money had been put into a fund. They used it to help people who came through gas money, bus tickets, groceries, whatever was needed. Darla managed it carefully, making sure every dollar went to someone who needed it. Christmas came, and with it, an idea. Ellie suggested they host a dinner for anyone who had nowhere to go. Martin expected maybe 20 people. Over 60 showed up. Veterans, travelers, locals who were alone. They packed into the diner and the new community space, and for one night, everyone had family. Jules played guitar. People sang. Darla carved the turkey with hands that didn't shake anymore. And when midnight came and the guests started to leave, more than one person stopped to hug Martin and whisper thank you. That night, tucking Ellie into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "This is what Mom wanted, isn't it, for us to have a big family?" "Yeah, kiddo, I think it is. I miss her." "Me too, every day. But I think she's happy, watching us, seeing what we built." Ellie yawned. "The light's still on, Daddy, just like we promised." Martin kissed her forehead and turned off the bedroom light, but she was right. Downstairs, the North Star's neon sign glowed red against the winter darkness. It would stay on all night, every night, a beacon for anyone who needed it. Spring brought wildflowers and a new wave of travelers. The memorial wall had grown. More names added. More stories honored. Veterans made pilgrimages to see it, to add their fallen brothers and sisters to remember in a place that felt safe. Raven kept her promise, coming back every month. Sometimes alone, sometimes with others. She'd moved to Colorado, bought a place 30 miles away. Close enough to help, far enough to have her own life. She and Darla had become close friends, two women who'd lost children but found purpose in their grief. One afternoon in May, almost 6 months after the rally, a news crew showed up. Not local this time, but national. They wanted to do a feature on the North Star, on the silent one, on the community that had rallied around one veteran. Martin's first instinct was to refuse, but Darla talked him into it. "This isn't about you," she said. "It's about what's possible. People need to see this, need to know that this kind of good exists." So he agreed with one condition. They had to tell everyone's story, not just his. The segment aired on a Friday night. Martin didn't watch it. couldn't stand to see himself on screen. But Ellie watched, and Tommy called to say it had been shared 500,000 times in the first hour. The next morning, the parking lot was full again. People who'd seen the story and driven through the night just to see if it was real, to see if a place like this actually existed. "It's happening again?" Darla said, watching the crowd gather. "I know." "You ready?" Martin looked at his daughter helping set tables. At Darla, who'd become family. At the memorial wall where Daniel's name caught the morning light. At Raven's wind chime singing in the breeze. At the faces of people who'd come seeking something they couldn't name but desperately needed. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." That Saturday, they held the first official Silent One rally. Not spontaneous this time, but planned. Advertised. Open to everyone. 250 motorcycles showed up. More than the original rally. They rode through the valley, came back to the diner, and spent the day sharing stories and building connections. It became an annual tradition. Every May, riders from across the country converged on the North Star. And every year, Martin stood in the parking lot feeling overwhelmed and grateful and utterly unworthy of all this love. "You're allowed to accept it, you know," Cole told him during the third annual rally. "All this. You're allowed to believe you deserve it." "I don't know if I'll ever believe that." "Then believe this. You changed lives, including mine, and now those changed lives are changing others. That's the legacy, brother. Not what you did for us, what we do because of you." The years passed in a rhythm of seasons and stories. Ellie grew up in the diner absorbing lessons about service and compassion and showing up. She learned to cook from Martin, learned to manage people from Darla, learned to fix motorcycles from Cole and Raven. She became the heart of the place in ways Martin never could be, drawing people out with her easy warmth and infectious hope. When she turned 16, Martin gave her a choice. Did she want to keep working at the diner, or did she want something else? Some other path. She looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Daddy, this is my path. This has always been my path. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Casey came back too. The girl who'd run away at 19 returned at 23, now a social worker herself. She'd gotten her degree, fought through trauma, built a life. And she'd come back to volunteer to help other kids who were running from the same darkness she'd escaped. "I wouldn't have made it without this place," she told Martin. "Without you believing I was worth saving. You were always worth saving. I know that now. But I didn't then. You did, though. You saw it before I could." The memorial wall became a place of pilgrimage. Families of the fallen traveled from across the country to see their loved ones' names, to sit in a place that honored service without glorifying war, to talk to people who understood. More than one Gold Star mother had broken down crying in Martin's arms, and he held them the way he wished someone had held him when his friends died overseas. Darla thrived in ways she never had before. She'd found a new career helping veterans navigate VA benefits, using her organizational skills for good instead of bureaucracy. She still worked at the diner 3 days a week, but the rest of the time, she was helping soldiers get the care they'd earned. Daniel would have been proud. She said it often, and Martin believed her. Raven opened a motorcycle repair shop teaching women how to work on their bikes. It became another gathering place, another hub in the growing network of healing spaces. She and Martin stayed close, talking every week, riding together when they could. She'd become family in the way that mattered, chosen, deliberate, permanent. On the 10th anniversary of the first rally, they held a celebration bigger than any before. 500 motorcycles, 1,000 people, news crews from around the world. The GoFundMe fund had helped over 300 people in 10 years. Lives changed. Trajectories altered. Darkness pushed back by stubborn, relentless light. Martin stood on the same stage where he'd given his first stumbling speech a decade earlier. But this time Ellie stood beside him. She was 19 now, beautiful and strong, and everything Sarah would have wanted her to be. 10 years ago, Martin said to the crowd, I was about to lose everything. This diner, my home, my hope, and then a storm brought strangers to my door. Strangers who became family, who saved me when I didn't think I could be saved. He looked at the faces in the crowd. Some familiar, some new, all connected. You taught me that kindness isn't a transaction. It's a multiplication. Every act of grace creates more grace. Every light lit helps someone else light theirs. And before you know it, the darkness doesn't stand a chance. The crowd erupted. Engines roared. And in that moment, Martin felt Sarah's presence so strongly, it took his breath away. She was here. In Ellie's smile. In the community they'd built. In the choice to keep going when everything said to quit. That night, after everyone had left and the diner was quiet again, Martin and Ellie sat in the booth where she used to do her homework. Her old drawing still hung on the wall, a timeline of growth and hope. "You know what I've been thinking," Ellie said. "What's that?" "When I was 9 and drawing that picture of the diner in the storm, I thought I was just drawing what I saw. But I wasn't. I was drawing what was coming. The light that would bring everyone home." Martin looked at the drawing. The North Star glowing bright against the darkness. All these years later it still hung there, a prophecy fulfilled. "Your mom used to say that light doesn't fight darkness. It just refuses to go out. And eventually the darkness has no choice but to recede." She was right. Yeah, she was. They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, guardians of a light that had become bigger than either of them. Outside, the neon sign buzzed softly. Inside, Raven's wind chime sang in the breeze from the open window. And on the memorial wall, 47 names caught the dim light. 47 lives remembered and honored. The North Star Diner would stand for decades more. Would weather storms and seasons and change. But its purpose would never waver. It would remain exactly what it had become, a place for the lost, the tired, and the still fighting. A place where strangers became family. A place where kindness multiplied. A place where the light never went out. And in a world that sometimes seemed determined to embrace darkness, that light became a revolution. Not loud, not violent. Just persistent. Just present. Just one man's choice to help, multiplied by everyone he'd touched, multiplied again by everyone they'd touched, until the ripples spread farther than anyone could measure. Martin Graves, the Silent One, had built something that would outlive him, not through grand gestures or public declarations, but through quiet acts of grace repeated until they became a movement, through showing up, through keeping the door open, through refusing to let the light go out. Because in the end, that's all any of us can do. Show up, help where we can, keep the light burning for whoever needs it next, and trust that somewhere, somehow, the darkness is already starting to lose.